Welcome to today's episode of Keeping Up with the Rodgers, the Hard Talks.
How we fucked up.
And we're trying to fix it. This is our version of couples therapy where we talk about problems in our marriage to help you feel a little less alone. Today's topic is how it all started way back when, 12 plus years ago. So Michael was working, obviously. I had a job. I hated my boss, and I don't really remember if I asked or kind of assumed that because I was pregnant, if I would stop working, but you definitely encouraged me to stop working where I was because my boss was so horrible. And then I just never started working again until I picked social media up when Braden was 6 months old. So that was a lot to take on, I'm sure, for you.
Oh, 110%. It was, we just met, moved in together. She was pregnant. Now I'm the sole provider for a whole family
in Southern California, which is not cheap to live in.
So it was the stress behind that. I mean, that was a mountain for somebody who'd never been underneath that kind of stress before. But yeah, you moving in, it was a bad situation at work that you had. That.
And when he said moving in, I didn't move in with him. He was living somewhere prior. I was living somewhere prior. We moved in together.
Yeah. So I know that she didn't like where she worked at and just had a horrible boss. So we made a decision, and it was more or less us coming together and saying that, you can quit working for right now, and I'll support the family.
I don't know that there was actually ever a conversation about deciding if I was going to go back to work, or
I don't think that conversation ever came
up. I
up.
honestly don't think that conversation ever came up. And then that's where it all started, where we did never communicate about finances, and it started
the snowball effect. I mean, everything kind of kicked off from there. We didn't, from the very beginning, not having the conversations about what we're going to do with our lives, and it was just kind of an everyday
struggle.
Yeah, of trying to figure out what we're going to do next and how. Not even what we're going to do next. It was more or less me going into work and just trying to figure out how to survive in Southern California with a new family. And I mean, that's a lot to take on as a person. And I can only imagine what it was like for you, because now you went from being outside working all the time to now you're at home and I'm at work all day. I'm gone.
I was a single, girl living by myself. I got my own apartment and my own studio apartment, which I loved. It was in Sherman Oaks.
I do not like where it was at. It was like in the middle of concrete sitting.
He is not used to that type of life. Growing up in California, that was normal to me. I was free. I mean, I could do whatever I wanted. And then I all of a sudden was, in a sense, tied down, even though I didn't feel that way then, but I was tied down, and now almost took away my whole being. I was at home. I was by myself. I didn't go to work, and it was lonely. While I was home by myself every day, I mean, I didn't really know anybody. I had went to school in California when I was younger. My friends were in Nebraska. They were in Arizona. They weren't in California. So it was primarily me by myself and making friends with Michael's friends that were new friends of his as well through work. And it was fun in the beginning. I mean, we were going on vacation all the time. Thankfully, because of Michael's jobs, we got to go to Cabo and Mexico, other places of Mexico, and it was fun. But reality was hard when you only have one income and you're not looking at a budget. But the word budget did not exist in our marriage. The word budget didn't exist in our marriage until, honestly, the past year. So it's been hard to want to work towards the same goal, but never communicating that we wanted the same things or were even on the same path of working towards the same goals.
Whenever we first met, and all of my friends were elite salespeople, and that's the families that we were around all the time, and it was more like being on like a Formula One race team at all times, that we were performing at such a high level all the time, running as fast and as hard as we could, just at the next thing. And that's what Courtney jumped into, and that's what we all got to see. And that can be a tough life for anybody. And that's what I've been used to for many years before I met Courtney. So I can only imagine what it was like on her side. We're so used to working 6 days a week, 12, 15-hour days, being gone all day long. And now she went from, being out, being, single in Southern California, going out and doing whatever she wanted to do. Now she's stuck at home. I mean, I can only imagine what that's like. And then couple that with, the stresses of me working as much as I did and coming back home and drinking. I drank a whole lot then, and it really just drove a wedge between our marriage at that time. We didn't
Before
see
it
it.
even started.
Yeah.
Before it started, honestly, we weren't even married yet. We weren't married yet. We married in February of 2014. So all of this was happening, and we didn't have a chance to stop or start or find a path of least destruction before it all just started really, really quickly.
And that was great what you said. The path of least destruction. I can't even say it right. But that you couldn't have hit the nail on the head any better right there. It was a destructive pattern from the very beginning, and it was a way that I just separated myself from you when I got home. That wasn't fair to our relationship by any means.
We'll get more into that in other videos because that's been a major crutch in our marriage, but that has definitely been a hard thing to deal with that we'll go into at a later date. Let's circle back to moving in together. So I moved out to California with not too many things. I had a bed, a dresser, I had a futon and a TV and some clothes. It wasn't all that much, and Michael moved out to
I had a
California.
Chevy Silverado with clothes in the back of it, and that was it.
That's all he had, and we've accumulated much more since then. But starting our lives in our first quote unquote home, we didn't have anything really. Michael didn't have furniture. He had roommates before that, the house that he lived in was furnished.
Yeah, it was corporate housing.
So we decided to do our first adult thing and go out and rack up a bunch of debt on furniture. And we bought a ton of furniture that we didn't need.
Well, the very first place we moved into was buying the couch that I so desperately wanted, like a Thanksgiving dinner. Honestly, it was brown with a bunch of different colors on it.
It had to have a chase lounge so he could lay his legs across it. Hated that couch, but we went into Ashley Furniture and put a bunch of money on a credit card, actually the Ashley Furniture card, and racked up debt that we didn't need, and we didn't talk about it. We just kept that cycle going, and it snowballed, and it was not good at all. And what's funny is that the table that we're sitting at right now is actually one of the things that we bought
on the second trip to Ashley Furniture. This was going on
this
the
was
other
the
house.
Second trip. Okay.
Yeah, the first apartment was just the couch. That was the biggest thing. The couch and end tables and lamp stuff.
There was no conversation of, hey, can we afford to buy this or not? That wasn't.
I don't think it was more of a, can we afford to buy this? It's, we're going to buy this because I can make the minimum monthly payment. Yeah. We didn't look at paying things off the way we should have together. And we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. It was more or less just, can we buy it? Can I afford it? Yes. And can I go get more money because I know that we can do it? Yeah, sure. But we didn't work towards that goal of paying stuff off. And that started in the very beginning. That did snowball into the rest of the relationship.
Being pregnant at 21, I was still on my parents' health insurance, or on my mom's health insurance, and that was one of the things that we had to decide was health insurance since I was pregnant. Do I go on to Michael's health insurance? But we weren't married yet, and I don't even remember what deciding factor. I think we just ended up with, it was cheaper to go on Michael's insurance, so let's get married.
Probably the smartest financial thing
that we did back then, at least, was going on Michael's insurance. And
I'm sure it was probably also a nudge from your mom and stepdad as well to get on our own insurance plan since you weren't pregnant.
I honestly don't remember, but I do remember that it was cheaper to go on Michael's insurance, and the only way I could do that was if we got married. So we got married in February of 2014, had Braden in July of 2014. So we were pregnant and married at about 6 months. And that was...
And mind you, during this time, I had made a career change as well during that time that allowed us the opportunity to be on a great health plan that we needed
for what happens next. Thankfully, Michael did have good health insurance because after Braden was born, which was in July, his first doctor's appointment, a couple days after we had him, was not good news. Normally you would go in and it would be exciting. Hopefully they gained weight. We had different news told to us by the doctor.
It was a reality check.
He had to have reconstructive surgery because his skull formed in a way as if he was born like a 1-year-old.
So his entire skull was completely fused together.
He had no soft spot whatsoever. So he would have looked like, if you guys remember the cartoon Hey Arnold with the football head, he would have looked like that had he not had the surgery that he had. So that was a lot to hear when you're, I was 21 years old. We were already going through, it was hard to pay for bills. It was hard to.
And that same exact weekend that our son was born, I found out my entire sales team had completely went to another company. So I was starting over from day one all over again, trying to support a family. So there was a whole lot that happened that week, coming out, a lot of uncertainties that you go through that most people don't want to talk about. And it was tough. It was really tough.
After we were told that he had to have surgery, we didn't know what that meant. We didn't know how much it would cost. We could barely afford to live, let alone reconstructive surgery on a baby. So thankfully we had the best surgeons that of all of the country people would fly to, and they were actually at the hospital at Kaiser in Los Angeles already. So we had the best care for Braden possible. But going to those doctor visits, hearing what would happen during the surgery was terrifying. It was horrible. And thankfully he's perfect now, and we had the great insurance that we did then, because the price of that surgery would have literally ruined us then. It would have still ruined us.
It would have bankrupted us completely.
So that was a lot to go through in a matter of 9 months of meeting, getting married, moving in together, and that was a lot.
With all that going on, and then also having my entire sales team leave, as a husband, as a father, as a provider, I'm looking at it saying, there's no time off in my job. 100% commission in Southern California. It's time to get up and just start the day all over again and get back to work. And that was tough to do for, I imagine, anybody that's out there doing it. But with all that being thrown at you at one time, it felt like I was a little bit, under the water. Like I was barely keeping my head up at that time.
And if you know Michael personally, which now I'm going to start crying. Michael does not complain. He gets up and does everything with a smile on his face, which is another fight that we've always had. Is I didn't understand how he could stay positive through everything that we had went through and still go through. And it's something that I admire greatly.
But also buried a lot of that with alcohol every single day when I got home. So it wasn't fair to you what I did either. So I appreciate that, but I wasn't there, especially the first little bit. Bringing Braden home, us as a new family. There's a lot of things that happened. Me coming home and drinking, and us not talking and just feeling like complete strangers in our own house together. House that we're trying to build
in our first year of marriage. No, not even first year. I mean, it was within a couple of months.
Yeah, we hadn't even hit our year mark yet. We had everything thrown at us that quick. I mean, I don't even think it was a year. It wasn't a year at all.
So about 6 months after we had Braden, he had to have his surgery. That was the first opportunity that he could have it. He couldn't have it before 6 months old, so he had it right around 6 months old. And we also were moving during that time, literally the exact same time we were moving from, we've moved so much I can't even keep track.
We're moving from like the heart of LA to Orange County.
And that was the same exact couple of days between Braden's surgery, a move.
Now, mind you, I had just taken on a new job a few months prior as well. So there was a lot of stuff that happened within that same time frame. But going into his surgery and surgery day.
So going into the day of the surgery, I don't really remember all that much other than, we were terrified. We walked him down.
That was the biggest thing from that day I remember probably the most, is walking him down the corridor to hand him off to the neurosurgeon and watching our 6-month-old son when the doors shut.
He had a yellow ducky gown on, and he walked down and you could see through the doors, and he's walking down, with his head looking back at us, walking down the hallway to have surgery that, is major brain head reconstructive surgery. That was a lot. That was a lot. That's not something that you're prepared for and know how to deal with until you're in it. So
we're going through all those emotions, and then waiting on the surgery, and he gets done with surgery. We go up, and he's in the recovery room, and we come right in, and it's the weirdest,
Bandages.
it's the weirdest thing you ever see. But babies are so resilient. He just pops right up, just having a good time, like nothing ever
He
happened.
was on so much medication, obviously, and he was up and smiling. I mean, he was wrapped in a headdress and drains and, strapped to a operating bed, but he was laughing, and it was just insane of a journey, of a time, that was just a crazy moment to witness. And then having to, go home and now take care of a baby with
Also packing everything up at the same time because we're moving.
Yeah, the same. Within the few days we moved, and with a baby with, his head cracked open with bandages, and it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. So we just moved into our brand new, place together as a family, and as a couple and as a family, we're supposed to, become closer as a whole family unit, and we didn't do that in the slightest way. In fact, we started. That's where it really started. We started growing apart.
We barely spoke. I didn't realize it until years later, but I definitely had postpartum depression between, being, I wasn't a single mom, but I was by myself all day, every day. Michael was working all day, every day.
I didn't make it any easier on you by working all day, every day, and then coming home and checking out with alcohol every single night, for years. But that first little bit, it was, we became so distant because of all those factors right there.
And you could tell that we, as inexperienced as we were in our marriage, we didn't know what we were fighting for. We didn't know what the fix was. So we just stayed stagnant in being upset and mad and depressed and trying just to keep up with living. And it was hard. It was really, really hard.
And mind you, it was just us. We had no other support.
No family around, no help, no money to get a babysitter to try and help our marriage, no money for counseling, nothing. It was just us. And this was pre-social media. So you didn't have the lives to watch to compare to. It was just us by ourselves in Southern California. What should have been us living our dream. And it was honestly depressing and sad most of the time. We kind of skipped over how we got married. So because we had to get married quickly for insurance reasons, we had to get married quickly and as cost effective as possible. So we got married at the Beverly Hills Courthouse. That was actually our go-to courthouse per the city that we lived in, I guess. You have to get married in a certain city. And that was our nearest courthouse. So we got married at the Beverly Hills Courthouse. And I wore a red dress that I bought the night before at Anthropology. And Michael
had some blue slacks from Kohl's. I think we bought.
We had to go to Kohl's to get Michael some work or some dress pants because he didn't own dress pants. So our wedding attire was definitely non-traditional.
And even the person who married us was non-traditional.
It's funny. The person who married us was the man in the end of The Hangover, the couple that gets married, the short man with the glasses. He's actually a real life judge, and he is the one who married us. So it's a funny story to tell every time we share where we got married. I think we're going to wrap up this episode because we have a lot more to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. This is actually very fun and therapeutic, because I'm going to cry again, to walk down memory lane. We hope that these stories are helpful to some extent for those of you that are watching, whether you're starting out your marriage or if you've been married for 40 years. Please leave us some advice below if you have any tips and tricks of how you've made your marriage last long. We're 12 years in. I don't see any end in sight unless you do.
I don't.
Stay tuned for next week's episode. Thanks for watching. Keeping Up with the Rodgers.